COVID-19 outbreaks sweeping across China. Guangzhou has called for mass testing and cancelled hundreds of flights after detecting just one infection. The city is racing to prevent a wider outbreak, as seen in Beijing and Shanghai. Authorities are standing firm that strict border curbs will remain in place until the country's coronavirus situation is brought under control. Now, in the Chinese capital, authorities have closed off schools, residential areas and offices. The city reported more than 50 new locally transmitted cases. More than 21 million residents continue to undergo regular COVID-19 tests, with a third round scheduled to begin tomorrow. While Beijing's daily case numbers remain low, the city is still on edge. Olivia Song joins us live now. Olivia, outbreaks spreading to more cities across China. Why is the government still standing firm on its COVID-0 policy?
Well, China is facing its biggest test with its worst outbreak that it's seen since this pandemic began. But we heard from health officials at a news conference a few hours ago, and they firmly defended its zero-COVID approach, saying that China must hold on without hesitation and unwaveringly to this zero-COVID policy. But authorities did also add that China has to ensure that the implementation of policies isn't extreme. Now, this comes as we've seen growing frustration, especially in the economic hub of Shanghai, where residents, many of them confined to their homes for more than a month now, facing food shortages and other inconveniences. Though at the same time, Chinese locals here have also told me that they understand the need for the zero-COVID policy, as this has prevented the further spread of the virus. Now, China has seen over 550,000 locally transmitted cases being reported since April. Also, they have seen more than 200 deaths. And officials said that most of these deaths have been among the elderly who are vulnerable with pre-existing conditions. And we also know that many of the seniors have not been fully vaccinated as well. And so therefore, officials are saying that given what we are seeing, there is a need to hold on to zero COVID, and it's not possible for China to treat the virus as a flu. And so China continuing to want to press on with this approach. Don?
And Olivia, along with that COVID-0 policy, the capital doesn't want to take any chances on this one. We're seeing more stringent virus curbs being expected across the country.
That's right. As case numbers continue to rise here in Beijing, you can feel that there still continues to be anxiety, but acceptance that there are going to be tougher measures ahead. Now, today we have just heard from the Beijing officials that all schools will be closed tomorrow, and we're talking about kindergartens and primary schools and middle schools. Now, all schools will be closed tomorrow, and they say that they will be starting their Labor Day holiday a day earlier. Now, the Labor Day break was actually supposed to start from the weekend and runs till Wednesday. But now officials are saying that school will resume after the break, but when exactly, that is not known and will depend very much on how this latest outbreak plays out. Also, when returning to school, students and teachers will need to produce a negative COVID-19 test result. But officials, perhaps trying to cool some nerves, also are saying that this shouldn't be viewed as a suspension of classes like in the past, where students had to carry on learning and attending classes at home, but rather this is starting the Labor Day holidays earlier, also to allow for mass testing to take place. And speaking of mass testing, we have also heard from officials that in the second round of tests that was concluded yesterday for the Chaoyang district, where the bulk of cases has been found, 3.8 million samples collected and 7 have come back positive. And mass testing has been expanded to more areas, even as we have seen authorities also move to place more areas in the Chaoyang district under strict, tight restrictions and management, and with residents advised not to leave their residential compounds, and with businesses, except for essential services like supermarkets and hospitals, allowed to operate, all other businesses being closed. Don?
Still facing some tough challenges there in Beijing. Olivia, thank you for that. Olivia Xiong in Beijing.
Over in Shanghai, authorities have announced new COVID-19 measures, including vaccinating more than 2,000 elderly people. Lo Min joins us live from Shanghai. Min, it seems in Shanghai, at least, no lifting of lockdowns until vaccination rates are ramped up.
That's right. Infection numbers have been down for 5 consecutive days now, which is a good sign. It shows that Shanghai has clearly passed its peak infection rate. And the fact that the government has been mobilizing these mobile vaccination teams to vaccinate some 2,000 elderlies amid the lockdown so far shows that they are taking active steps to prepare for the time when Shanghai comes out of lockdown. And that's because Shanghai has the greatest proportion of elderlies of all of China, which makes it particularly vulnerable to the Omicron variant, and many of Shanghai's elderlies are not fully vaccinated. Less than 40% have gotten the booster jab. But the other reason is because Shanghai and China in general just doesn't have enough medical resources to deal with a large-scale outbreak. According to data from the Fudan University, from a paper that was published by the Fudan University, Shanghai has only 6 ICU beds per 100,000 people. That's very low compared to the US, which has 35 ICU beds per 100,000 people. So for a city of over 25 million people here, we have less than 1,500 ventilators, less than 1,500 ICU beds. And that's why Shanghai really cannot afford to shift away from COVID-0 until more of its elderly are fully vaccinated.
And tell us more about reports of protests as frustrations hit boiling point.
That's right. We are 1 month into the lockdown. And, these government food aid packages that were distributed, it's being done very unevenly. Some estates got quite a good variety and quantity of food. Others received really very little and certainly not enough to survive on. So today, 3 officers were charged for mishandling the food distribution. One officer was reselling it for a profit. And previously, there had been other officers who were charged for distributing subpar products that were bought at market price. Clearly, there are suppliers profiteering from the high prices of food during this period, prices that make it unaffordable for many of Shanghai's poor. And so I spoke to residents from one community that was affected with 3 officers charged today. They said they finally received a food package today. And these small-scale protests that's been breaking out over the past weeks appear to be working in some ways to get the government's attention. And that's encouraged some people to organize. Today, there was a poster that was circulated on social media inviting people to clang their pots and pans at 7 p.m. from their balconies. And you can hear it here at my estate from this window, a huge commotion outside, people clanging pots and even meditation gongs, screaming at the top of their lungs, demanding for government aid.
All right, Lo Min in Shanghai with that report. Thank you.